is up, homies? My name is Felix and I am here back again with another video for you all today. And in this one, I figured it was finally time to show you guys how to mix and master your beats inside of FL Studio. So obviously there are many different methods and ways to mix and master your beats. This is just my method and this works pretty well for me. It makes my beats sound pretty nice and professional, so hopefully by the end of this video, yours should sound that way as well. So make sure you guys check out my Instagram and my SoundCloud down in the description below, along with the playlist of songs I produced, my beat store, my Discord, all that stuff. Go check it out if you'd like to do so. And now we can get into this video. Alright, so this mixing and mastering procedure is, like I said, the one that I use, and this is the one that I kind of highlight in every single one of my videos. However, for this video, I'm going to go way more in depth and I'm going to show you guys all the little details and little stuff that I do, and basically just mix a whole track from start to finish and show you guys how I do it. Okay, so this right here is the beat that I'm going to be using as an example for today. As you can hear, it's not mixed literally at all. And it sounds pretty bad, right? It's super muddy, all the sounds don't really fit well together. So what we gotta do is take all these sounds and mix them together, which is why it's called mixing, probably. So the first thing you wanna do is, assuming you have your entire beat laid out and everything, you're just gonna take all your sounds and you're gonna assign them all to a mixer track. So the way you do that is you go into your channel rack thing, your sequencer, and then you click these little icons, you click and drag them all the way down, and then just do Control L on your keyboard. And that assigns everything to a mixer track all right away like that. Super easy. And now as you can see, everything will play in here very loudly and disgustingly. Alright, so for some of the beginners out there and even some of the more advanced people, because for a while I didn't really pay any attention to this, inside of the mixer tab you actually have a bunch of different options to kind of customize your whole layout and everything. So if we go to where this thing is right here, I think the default is like compact 2 or compact or something like that, and that makes everything really squished together. However, for me, my favorite one is wide 2. That's what I always use because I like the way that this is laid out. So these are all really similar. They have mostly basic stuff. As you can see, the compact one and the wide one both have the volume levels and stuff. They also have this green button, which if you left click on will turn off a track, and if you right click on will solo the track, and then if you keep clicking on more tracks it'll turn them on. And this is how in a couple seconds I'm gonna solo out each and every track to play them individually. But then they also just have different wide layouts, different compact layouts and stuff like that. So yeah, just choose which one you like the best. Alright, so the one thing that you should definitely do, I would say even before you start making the beat at all, is go to your master track and put a Fruity Soft Clipper on it. So you can just go to any one of these bottom slots here and just go Fruity Soft Clipper and then do nothing to it. Some people might say, oh, you should adjust this, you should adjust that, but I just leave it exactly how it is, and that works perfectly fine for me. So ideally, what you want to do, and what I usually do when I make any sort of beat, is I adjust these knobs right here while I'm making the beat. So while I'm pulling in sounds, I'll be adjusting this knob right here, which is the volume knob. The panning knob is the one on the left, and I usually don't touch that one because as you can see in the mixer, if something is panned really far to the left or to the right, you can actually see it. So I like to make any sort of panning adjustments inside of the mixer rather than inside of the sequencer. So anyways, usually what I'll do is I'll just go through and adjust the volumes of the sounds as I see fit. When it comes to adjusting volumes and stuff, it really is up to you and how your ear likes things to sound. But it's really just as simple as if something's too loud, you turn it down. If something's too quiet, you turn it up. And that's pretty much the basis of like the whole leveling procedure. One thing that might make it easier is to just turn everything down quite a lot like this. And then basically just bring up each sound to a point where it's, okay and you like how it sounds. So once you've adjusted all the volumes inside of the channel rack, and mind you, some people don't like to do that. Some people like to adjust everything inside of the mixer, and that's perfectly fine. Hopefully my goal is to just give you like a guideline for how you should mix your stuff and give you some helpful tips and tricks here and there. But anyways, after I adjust the volumes a little bit in the channel rack, I'll go into the mixer and then I'll adjust the volumes in here where I can actually see the levels and have a little bit of a visual representation of what's going on. So if you have a bunch of different sounds and you're not really sure what should be louder, what should be quieter, how you should do that sort of thing, because your sounds shouldn't all be like one level. You should have some kind of dynamics in there. Like some things should be a little bit louder, some things should be kind of tucked away in the mix. And my thought process for how I choose what sounds should be louder, what sounds should be quieter, is I just decide what is the main sound of my beat. So it's usually like the first thing that I added and the first thing that I started building all the other instruments off of. So for me in this beat, it's going to be this bell right here. So that is going to be like the focus of the melody. That's what you want to stand out a little bit more than everything else, and then everything else you just want to kind of complement that sound. So the way that I would adjust the volumes for this whole melody is I would start with this main sound here and go through and turn on each one of these sounds. Turn them down as you see fit. So now this sound right here, So this sound is a little bit higher pitched, it's a little bit harsher on the frequency spectrum. So I want the sound to be a little bit more tucked away. So we're basically just gonna play all these sounds. And as you can hear now, it's more tucked away. And I'm going to do kind of the same thing with this little lead sound here. And now the last sound of the melody is this right here. So yeah, this is pretty good as far as the leveling goes for the melody and everything. I'm pretty satisfied with how this sounds right now. So now we're gonna move on to the drums. And the way I do the drums, it's a very specific order. So I usually solo out the kick first, and then after I adjust the volume of the kick, I'll go on to the 808. And as you can hear, pretty good volume for both of those. You want your kick to be a little bit louder, your 808 to be, a little bit quieter, but still like one of the loudest things. And then you want your clap or snare to be kind of next in volume after that. And I have a layered snare kind of thing going on here, so I'm just gonna adjust both of them at the same time. And then usually after that, I'll adjust the volume of any like percussion sounds that I have in there. Maybe like some rim shots or cowbells or whatever the heck you might have in there. I just have this little snare kind of thing. And then the last thing I'll adjust the volumes of is the hi-hats, the open hat, and the closed hat. Usually a good level for me is basically having it a little bit quieter than the clap or the snare, so it'll probably be like around here compared to the clap. And then usually with my open hat, it's the quietest drum sound in my whole beat. I'll turn it down quite a lot. Because for me, I've heard even a lot of professional producers that have their open hats way too loud, and something about that is just not right to me. I don't like it. And then also with a crash sound, I'm basically gonna do the same thing, bring it down quite a lot. So yeah, honestly, for the mixing process, that's pretty much like 70% of the work done right there. As long as your levels are good, as long as your volumes are hitting right and nothing's too loud, nothing's too quiet. The only other stuff we really have to do is just finishing touches, cherries on top, sprinkles on top, whatever you may want to call it, but the majority of the work is pretty much done. All right, so now we get to the part that I talk about in most of my videos at the end, which is EQing and putting reverb on stuff. And usually I just gloss over it, but right now I'm going to go into a lot more detail and show you guys the specifics of stuff. But anyways, what I'll do with each and every one of my melody components is I'll go in and I'll put an EQ on it. And I'll take the EQ and basically cut out a lot of the low-end frequencies or other frequencies that we just don't need. So the reason you want to cut out a lot of low-end frequencies is because those low-end frequencies will clash with the frequencies in your 808 and your kick, and that is something that you absolutely do not want to happen. As you can see, if we pull up an EQ on our 808, it looks like this. All pretty much low end right here. Main area where the frequencies are kind of constricted to is this area right here. So that area right there is usually where you do not want to have your melody components playing. So I'm going to go to this main bell sound, load up an EQ, and then you're going to go to the purple one. You're going to drag these little dots down all the way, and then you're going to drag this little shape down twice till you get this kind of thing going on. And so we're going to drag this up enough to where it doesn't completely change the sound, but it still cuts out a lot of those low frequencies. If I were to drag this all the way up here, the sound is just completely different, and it's not exactly what I wanted to have in there. But if we take it back a little bit like this, we're able to pretty much retain the original sound while also cutting out a lot of those muddying frequencies. So another thing I like to do is sounds like this, which is totally not necessary, but I like to cut out this part right here where there's really no frequencies playing. So we're basically just going to do the opposite of what we did with the purple one, with the blue one. So drag this down, and now we're going to drag this one down 4 times, I think, and then just drag it in. And as you can hear, it doesn't really change the sound at all, but it just gets rid of some of those maybe like straggling frequencies or whatever kind of stuff is up there in the high end that we really just don't even need because it wasn't meant to be a part of that sound. So now I'm gonna go to the next sound right here, this little second bell layer, put an EQ on it, and now you can see that with this one, there's a lot of low end frequencies going on here. So we're just gonna do the same procedure right here, cut it out. And a lot of times what I'll do to kind of bring out the presence of a sound a little bit more is just boost the mid frequency range right here. And then I'm going to cut out some of the high end, but only just a little bit, not as extreme as we did with the other sound. So just go like this, and then drag it in, maybe to like here. So yeah, anyways, I'm basically just going to go through and do that same procedure with the EQ with each and every one of these melody sounds until all of them have pretty much a basic EQ on them. And if you've seen some of my other videos, you might know that I don't do anything to my drums other than basic leveling, and that's because I always just pick good drum sounds to begin with, because if you have good high quality drum sounds to start out with, you're not going to need to do a whole lot of EQing or putting other effects and stuff on your drums, because they should be sounding professional once you have all the levels right and everything. So with this lead right here, it's way more into the higher frequencies, so we're just going to keep that same tabletop kind of shape and just move it up into the higher frequencies a little bit more. But for this kind of sound, we don't really need to cut any of the low end because there is no low end. So we're just going to make a shape like this. and basically just surround the area that the sound is playing in so that there's no, stray frequencies getting through here and there. But yeah, unless your sound has a lot of low end frequencies, you don't really need to cut stuff out, unless you feel like you need to cut out some of the high end, which I do a lot of times if I have a pad sound and I think that it's way too abrasive. I'll just cut out some of the high end sound. All right, so once you have an EQ on all your melody components, what you want to do is add some type of reverb to stuff. You don't have to add a reverb to everything, because a lot of times with plugins and stuff, there's built-in reverb, so you don't really need to add more. But there's two sounds in this beat in particular that I want to do kind of something special to. So this lead right here, I want to make this lead a lot more ambient sounding. So what I'll usually do if I want to make a sound more ambient, I'll do this with strings a lot of times, or whatever else, is I'll make it really stereo like this. And that's another thing that I should mention, is that it's totally up to you how you want to do the stereo separation knobs, but personally for me, I kind of do them in accordance to the volumes. So if I have this sound being the main sound, I'll adjust the stereo separation a little bit, but not have it super stereo. And then the layers will kind of be a little bit more stereo, and then the counter melodies like a little bit more, and then so on and so forth. But anyways, if I want to make this lead sound more ambient, I'm going to put a reverb on it like this. The one that I personally like is the small studio preset, and then I'll turn up the decay a little bit, and then maybe turn down the wet a little bit. So as you can hear, it's a lot more ambient already, but one thing that I usually like to do is go in here to stereo enhancer, add that bad boy in here, and then go to presets and 4 strings. And now it's super wide inside your headphones or speakers or whatever, and it's a lot more ambient. So I'll probably do a similar procedure with these synth stabs right here. So that's pretty much the basics of how you want to mix your melody and everything. All the other stuff that you can add is pretty much subjective. Depending on the specific sounds in your beat, you maybe want to add a chorus, you maybe want to add, a phaser or a flanger or something like that. It all really just depends on your preference and how you want your beat to sound, and all the different sounds in your beat, how they complement each other. But yeah, I'm just going to leave it at this right now. So yeah, honestly, at this point, we're pretty much done here. The only other thing that I'll usually do is EQ out some of the resonating frequencies of my melody. And the video that I talked about earlier, this one right here, essentially explains how to do that in the procedure that I use to do that sort of thing there. But now once we have everything in place, our leveling is all good, we've EQ'd out the stuff that we need to, added some effects and all that type of stuff. Now the moment everybody's been waiting for, the super secret, highly classified, super complicated process of mastering your beat. It's really not that complicated at all. Really what mastering is in its simplest form is just taking a track that is well mixed and all the levels are good and everything, and just bringing the volume of that track up so that it fits with, like radio standards and, high quality, loud music, blah, blah, all that other stuff. However complicated people want to make it seem, it's literally just making your track louder, and there's so many different ways you can do that, so many different plugins you can use. One way that I've actually shown before is you can go in here and put a fruity limiter on this, and some people are like, oh, don't use fruity limiter's so bad. You can use literally any plugin you want, it doesn't matter, as long as you're raising the volume. And basically you can just bring down all these envelope knobs right here, and then bring your ceiling just way up, and then just turn the gain up until it starts to distort, and then just bring it back a little bit. As you can hear right there, it's very loud to the point where it's kind of distorted, so we're just going to bring it back a little bit. And there you have it. That's pretty much the mastering process right there. So if I'm being 100% honest, I don't actually do this. I do not use Fruity Limiter, but Fruity Limiter is just a really nice built-in replacement to a lot of the other more expensive plugins out there, like Isotope Ozone, which is what I use. And for those of you who have Isotope Ozone, or you're just curious what I do, I just turn off the equalizer and then I go to the maximizer. And then sometimes at this point, I don't even touch anything at all, but I'll usually bring this up a little bit, at least like 2.4 or something. And I basically just do the exact same thing as Fruity Limiter. I just adjust it to where it kind of starts to distort, and then just bring it back a little bit, and then you're pretty much good to go. So yeah, that is pretty much my whole mixing and mastering process. It's obviously not the best one out there. It's not the industry standard. It's not the sole way you should mix your beats or anything like that. But that is the way that I do it, the way that's worked for me for quite a while, and the way that I will probably continue to do it until I develop some more techniques and stuff like that, which I'll probably share with you guys later on down the road. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you're able to learn a thing or two. Let me know down in the comments below if you have any questions for me. I will do my best to answer them. Make sure you guys check out my Instagram and my SoundCloud down in the description below, along with the playlist of songs I produce, my beat store, my Discord, all that stuff. Go check it out if you'd like to do so, and I will see you guys next time.
Love me over him, you prefer. I know what you're here for, listen for. I know what you can't see, shouldn't read. Ain't giving satisfaction that you crave. I'm only just a tool for how you don't need. I know you always here for me.